What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi back with my man Eric Sheets. Hey, hope you guys had a great weekend. Hope you're having a good Monday. I had a really good weekend. It was a good DFS end of the week last week since I've been back home. It's been pretty much felt right on point. And had some close calls while I was gone as well. But I did want to quickly go over the lineup that ended up taking second in the Monster. It was right there, man. It was something I really thought was going to happen. It was looking good. And basically just needed to avoid a Patrick Wisdom home run in the ninth with two strikes on a 1-2 pitch. And you can see right here, it came in second, but it was, obviously we had similar lineups between the two of us, and I had Turner and Seager still going. So I really could have had something going there. And it almost worked out beautifully. Of course, he hits the home run, and then I get nothing else out of those guys after that point. So that was a little frustrating, a little tilting. But it was exactly what I talked about doing on the show about stacking the White Sox. And then when Grandal was announced back, I said that becomes sort of what we said about Buxton on DraftKings. But obviously Buxton didn't pay off with 700 fantasy points. But you got low ownership on all the White Sox that night, and it was just a beautiful situation. And it's just something you want to try and do these days, is to try and stack against the Cubs. See, even yesterday with a good pitcher like Hendricks comes out and gets hit around a little bit early, and they just don't have any motivation to win. They don't have, their bullpen is garbage. So if you can get to whoever the starting pitcher is, though, you're going to have a chance of scoring a lot of runs against teams like the Cubs, like the Pirates, like the Diamondbacks, et cetera. And anyway, it was a great night. It's obviously a huge swing between first and second, not to mention on top of it, I would have won the $4 also, which was for 44K. So I would have, or 44,444 or something like that. So that would have been an extra 125,000, but still, you can't hate it. And I'll feel a lot better about it after one review or I win the million tomorrow, Sheets. Anyway, how was your weekend? That was my long intro. And then let's
thanks for reminding me that tomorrow is that I thought it was today, but that 2,500 buy-in that I won that seat for. So I'm going to be grinding for that. And I didn't have as much top heavy success, but I really did well in all over the place in all these other sports that I've kind of taken a liking to. For those who have been following the MMA stuff, if you follow the process there, basically everybody won that we talked about, and I tripled my money there. I actually was listening to I built some soccer lineups for the EPL thing using what DFS Chan was talking about in his videos for us, and I actually got fifth in one of the big ones there.
Oh, nice.
So I doubled my money there, and I'm really into all that. And the League of Legends has been strong. Baseball, I wasn't doing that great. Yesterday I did pretty well. Got sixth in something. Not doing any major, whatever, but I did pretty well yesterday. And it was really funny. I was, sort of in the money in something. And then I had forgotten that I had Rafael Devers, who basically I thought almost rained out. They didn't start 4 hours later. And he was the one guy left I had in that lineup. He had 2 home runs.
Oh my God.
9 hours later, so I did pretty well, but Bobby's been right on it with the baseball. And let's continue on as we get into that. We're getting into that time of the year where we're going to have a zillion sports with billions in prize pools all going simultaneously. And before you even know it, it's going to be tilting the NBA soon.
Yep, absolutely.
But Bobby and I offline, we got to talk about what we're going to do content wise for football, and what people should expect and when they should expect it and stuff like that. But we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll get that all straightened out. And I know Rody wants to be doing that. I'll do a best ball show with him sometime.
Oh, nice.
So
you guys know about that best ball?
I know very little. He knows quite a bit.
Oh, good.
I did a bunch of, we used to do a fun one at Roto Grinders where literally everybody who provided content who on the video side of things would do a one together, and we do a live draft. And I would always do pretty terrible in those because I was usually still not onto football season. But okay. It was a fun little format that we did, and we just sort of all did it together on the draft app when that was a thing. Anyway, guys, real quick before we get into everything for today's slate, don't forget, sign up for free for TrueDFS.com. Guys, we really are, especially our Discord, we're going to have to start making premium soon because I think there's great information out there. We've got a lot of people crushing it. We're doing exactly what we were saying we're going to do, and we're making money off of it. And we want you guys to be a part of it. But it's all free right now if you join for Discord and for our regular site. You can get all of Sheets, all of my picks, everything for free for the first month. And so jump on in TrueDFS.com. Anyway, Sheets, let's pull up your screen and go game by game.
Yep, sounds good. Let me that up here. I was actually kind of hoping that that today was going to be the 2,500 one, because I have kind of like a nice easy low stress bill that I could probably live with. I don't know what tomorrow's slate's going to be like. I'm sure it's going to be
a monster.
Yeah. But okay, let's just get started with Philly Washington. I mean, right off the bat, you have one of the premier pitching options, and that would be Zach Wheeler against a team that's been pretty grim. With the exception of Soto, they really don't have a lot to offer. And Wheeler is, has been, as you've brought up several times in these things, he's become one of those guys, man. He's become one of those top pitchers, and so he is certainly in play. And I did not get to Josiah Gray on the other side of this game. What I did get to actually was, you know what, on FanDuel of all things, the Phillies rate as my top stack. Where it's interesting because on DraftKings, I'm not really getting to that much at all. All I'm getting to at DraftKings from Philly is kind of like one-off sort of with McCutchen and Miller. But I don't know. I'd be interested to hear how you rate Wheeler relative to other, Robbie Rays and Corbin Burns, stuff like that, and how you think of the hitting in this game.
Yeah. So Wheeler here's how incredible he is. Okay. In his last start, he gets 22 fantasy points. He gave up 5 runs in that start. Now they left him in the 9th inning. Probably you could say too long, but this guy will throw 120 pitches, which is one of the things we love. That's why I always love Scherzer. And for a while, I even preferred him over to Grom, maybe even a little too long, because you want this leash when you have your pitcher. You want the guy who can go out there and throw 120 pitches. And even if he struggles, you're going to get a couple extra strikeouts at somewhere along the lines. Wheeler's been getting hit a little bit lately. It doesn't scare me the slightest bit. Even when he gets hit, he still scores 20 fantasy points plenty of times. And when he goes off, you're going to need him because he'll get 45 for you. Like he has just the ultimate ceiling. He's the most likely complete game guy almost every start, I feel like. I like the matchup, even though Washington's been sort of weirdly pesky for a team that's kind of sucks. I think that it's just too good of a spot. I don't know what's up. Like if there's no one going to play Philly, I could understand that being the argument. I don't really think that a stadium downgrade and then Josiah Gray, who's an excellent pitcher. The only issue is it's what we always talk about, right? It's like, okay, well, you have this rookie guy, maybe if he struggles, things you could sort of try and find a way to pick on him, as well as potentially even play him. Like, I don't think I would go that far as far as to play him today, but he's really good. He's got as good a stuff as almost anybody on the slate, not anybody not named Wheeler or Corbin probably. And I don't particularly find the need to try and pick on him. However, if you get to that bullpen, which is terrible, and you get to a young pitcher early, then maybe there's an argument for it. I just am not finding it myself. Maybe I'll change my mind by this afternoon. Sheets won't be here this evening, but I'll be with you. Maybe I can talk my man Rody into joining me. That's 6 Eastern, but right now Philly's not really showing up much for me.
Okay, and it's funny, we get two of the main, actually 3. I mean, I guess, but 2 of the main games, both pitching and hitting wise, just come right out of the gates. That being Baltimore, Toronto. I mean, you have what could be the top pitching option in Robbie Ray, and what could be the top hitting option in Toronto coming right out of the same game. I do like Robbie Ray. I have him rated as the top overall pitcher given price. And with respect to the hitting part, I have Toronto right now, not as the top stack, but one of the top 3. And to separate the top 3 is for me kind of splitting hairs. And I have them on FanDuel, maybe 3rd or something like that, given price and all that stuff. So yeah, this seems like a pretty easy spot, pretty chalky spot. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so I like Ray as usual. I'm just going to point out we've seen consistently a team with Baltimore's a team with less than a 17% strikeout percentage against left-handed pitching. So if there's an argument to fade him, and first of all, I do have Ray and Wheeler as the clear top two. But if you want to take a different approach, a team that strikes out only 17% of the time against a guy who gives up stolen bases and home runs, maybe we can try and exploit that a little bit, you know? And look, they're not going to strike out 17% against Robbie Ray. He'll find his strikeouts. But, you know, he's got an 8.5 K prop today. I think that's that's pretty normal for him. He even gets up to 9.5 sometimes, but that might be a little bit high. We've just consistently seen this Baltimore team, while they struggle offensively, I tend to like to attack them with righties because they put a lot of righties in this lineup. They're pesky enough. Now they're usually at home. They're a little bit of a stadium downgrade for them. So I actually think a mini Baltimore stack you could get away with. You know, nothing too cute. You could play Mancini, Mountcastle, Santander, Mullins, Hayes. I like his price. Urias has just been really, really awesome for me. I don't think you want to play all together. I don't think you necessarily need to full stack it, but I think there's merit for definitely a mini stack at least. And then there is no team in baseball that's struggling like Toronto. They are awful right now. They cannot hit the ball to save their life. I did finally get my Kevin Smith home run yesterday. I thought I was going to be off to the races. I've been betting on this kid, and he hit it out, and I had Bichette. It looked like it was going to have a nice stack, and every inning, bases loaded, nobody out, no runs. Second and third, nobody out, no runs. It's horrible. Some of it's fluky, and with Springer back, I'm willing to just say F it and let's play the Blue Jays. The problem is they're going to be really popular, and they've been like the worst hitting team in baseball. I mean, for almost 3 weeks now. So I'm still going to have some of it because the spot is a little too good. In Baltimore, we just see how much they explode. There's nothing to be afraid of with Ellis or anybody in that bullpen. And again, with Springer back, this lineup is better. I just am having a hard time knowing what to do with it. A chalky team that's hitting about 150 in the month of August. So I'll probably be below the field on Toronto, but I certainly can't cross them out. And maybe what I'll do is just pick out a couple, maybe a 2 or 3 bats and try and stick to or maybe 3 or 4 and make my stacks a little bit smaller with them, because I do think they show up as great for some power upside, but it just feels gross, man. Anyway, sorry, that's a long way of saying I'm iffy on Toronto today.
Who would be your favorite Toronto? I mean, I guess you'd have to continue to use Dickerson at 3K, right? Dickerson's
the cheap one I like. I honestly think it's really like I had a 3-man stack in one of my lineups yesterday with Kevin Smith and it even batting 9th because he's got some power. Now this is probably too big of a slate to do that, and he's not 2K anymore. He's 2.3. He's still right there. But I think that Springer coming back, I would take. He probably would grade out the best. Vlad and Teoscar have been really bad this month. Bichette has been swinging the bat really well. And I'm sorry, Vlad and Simeon have been really bad this month. So I would say Springer. I mean, it's all Guerrero. I'm always going to be tempted to Dickerson, and then Alejandro Kirk, depending on where he is in the lineup. He's they moved him up to cleanup the other day. They were trying to shake up their lineup because they've been struggling so much. And he's not a cheap catcher, but he's got some power, and I like him a lot. So, and then Dickerson, as you mentioned, but with them, that's what's hard with them, Sheets. Like they all have tremendous power, and so when we're trying to just pick 1 or 2 of them out, I'm going to take the best 2, which in general are Vlad and Springer, and then maybe a little nod to Teoscar and Simeon. But Bichette's been hot lately. I mean, it's hard to separate them, any of them from each other, really, in a matchup. It's going to be a bullpen game. So outside of Vlad being just a better hitter than everyone else is, but Toronto, I'd like. They're probably gonna break out of it at some point. They definitely will. Will it be tonight as chalk? I kind of hope not, because I think I can try and find ways to try and win it elsewhere.
So I guess I'll start with Boston and Tampa. So Nick Pivetta is a guy who, who's if he's not around the plate, if he's taking these batters to 3 balls, no strikes, 3 balls, 1 strike, it's obviously a huge issue. However, if he's around the plate or he's getting a good umpire, or the team is free swinging, he always has upside. And Tampa, although they've been scoring just infinite runs pretty much every game, it seems. It wasn't too long ago where we were attacking Tampa as a strikeout type team,
we still can, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So my point is, that I think that Pivetta at 6,800 is completely in play here. And considering, there's going to be some options in cheapo options and kind of mid-range options. And if somehow Pivetta kind of just falls through the cracks because, I don't know, I mean, maybe people see he didn't have a good game his last game. Maybe they'll notice that Tampa's been scoring 15 runs a game or whatever. I do think that he's a good GPP play. I did not get any of Patino, or I did not get to any of the hitting. What are your thoughts on this game?
I think both of these pitchers are in play. I like Patino. I think it's an interesting game where it's pretty weird to see Boston with a below 4 run total. I think this is I like both pitchers, but at the same time, I think that there's a good argument to just bet the over on this game. Both of these teams are a little too powerful to probably be this low, to be projected this low. I'm not getting to any of the Boston bats, especially because I have so much respect for that Tampa bullpen. And then I'm not getting to the Tampa bats until I started thinking that's kind of like what we should do with Pivetta though. If I'm going to play some Pivetta, which I will take some shots on the other side, both Pivetta and Patino, by the way, with a 5.5 K prop, which is solid for their price range. I think there's an argument to maybe at least mini stack Tampa Bay, because we've seen Pivetta blow up at times, and there's good and bad. And the last time they pulled him early, in general, he has a leash. Sometimes there's good and bad things that happen with the leash. And I think that you can see, I think especially low Meadows, the lefties definitely stand out for me. So I will take some shots on a mini Tampa Bay stack, as well as playing a little Pivetta and then a little bit slightly less of Patino.
Okay, moving on to Colorado, Texas, which is kind of a key game from a pitching perspective. Kind of weird, right? But Herman Marquis, I mean, either at Colorado or away from Colorado, obviously has a lot of talent. Texas just doesn't really have anybody right now. So Marquis is going to probably project as, if one of the top value pitchers on the slate, and probably the top, I would imagine, the top owned SP2 for lineups that decide to do that, right? I mean, you can certainly, like you always can, you could play Ray Wheeler, you could play Ray Burns, you could play two of those 3 high price guys if you want, or as we'll get to the cheapo on the other side of this game, you can pay all the way down for Alexi too. But I think the Marquis is probably the most solid way to go. It certainly makes a lot of sense. And if this were, I'd probably wimp out. If this were the 2,500, that's probably what I would do. I'd probably take Marquis, and I'd probably play one of the top guys, either Wheeler or Ray. I'd either flip a coin, or I probably would play Ray actually, along with Marquis, and just kind of go onward. On the other side of it, you have Alexi, who's 4,700, and yeah, I mean, he's 4,700, and he's going to project as a good point per dollar play. And I think what you do with this game really depends on how the ownership kind of comes in. If people really just decide to just make Alexi like Sandy Koufax or whatever, I really have no problem just playing Colorado. I mean, honestly, I know Colorado stinks and all that stuff, but if you get the leverage that you need by doing that, I always like trying to pick on a chalky cheap SP2 if that's what ends up happening. So I would try Colorado, and then if you're really a glutton for punishment, you could do the same thing on a kind of a more grandiose scale by playing also against Colorado. So I think that what you do this game is really important, and I could see arguments for all 4 prongs of this.
Yeah, I think you said it a lot of it pretty well. Marquis is really I think he's an excellent pitcher. I cannot for the life of me figure him out. There are some things that are like this year he's been really consistently great, except for his last start, which oddly was against the Cubs, which should have been his best start. And historically, that's sort of been his thing. He's actually had a number of the years he's pitched, he's been better at home than he has been on the road for DFS purposes, especially. So he does get the downgrade going to the American League. It is Texas. I like Marquis. There's a lot of pitching options. The Alexi thing I'm going to have to look into a little bit more, because I think if he's fully stretched out, this is a great spot. I like to try and attack Colorado every time I get the chance. I'm not that interested in the hitting in this game. I think that Texas value appeals to me. if Colorado were super cheap, and they had made them all like 3K because they were outside of Colorado, like the way they probably should be priced. Although I say that after they just took my Dodgers down. I don't know if I can get to the full stack of Colorado, but it is a good spot against, a guy who has a high range of outcomes, and you've got a bullpen that's really bad behind him. But it is in Texas. It's not a great hitter's park. I don't think it's where I really want to go on this slate. So I'm not very interested in the hitting. I do like Marquis, and I may play Alexi a little bit, but I don't feel like Marquis is some sort of a lock here. There's a lot of good pitchers. We've already talked about 5 of them that are on my list. So I don't know where he's going to end up for me.
You like is it too fancy? Do you like Heaney coming off the bench against his former team?
Do we know that's going to happen?
I mean, that's the way it's looking right now.
So the plan is to pitch Kluber 2 or 3 innings.
Yeah.
I mean, and then how do we go? How deep? It feels a little too fancy for me.
Okay.
Just because we have the other guys, and by the way, Pivetta and Patino, even in starting these games, are probably rate just about the same as him anyway. So
right.
It's not like, I don't know. I can't quite get to that myself. That's kind of weird that the Yankees would try that with Kluber.
Right.
I actually don't like that from them at all. And I think that there's a chance that if he's cruising, that they let him pitch like 5 innings. Like, I don't think that's out of the question. What if he throws 50 pitches? That's fine.
Right. Right. So, but aside from that, which I think is, that's a kind of an interesting thing. I don't know how Heaney left LA, whatever it is. But if it's like one of those weird things where he just can't wait to pitch against his old team, if this is even his first game against the old team, I presume it is. And he is kind of cruising somehow. I don't know, 60 is only 6,800, right? He could pay that off in 3 innings, right?
Yeah, but so can Pivetta, Patino, you know what I mean?
I get it. But I do like the Yankees a little bit on DraftKings as kind of like, a secondary stack. I mean, they win every game, and and they're loaded. So I don't see any reason why you can't play them. Did Quintana pitch for the Yankees too? I don't remember.
Why? Quintana didn't pitch for the Yankees this
year. Okay. So yeah, I do like the Yankees a little bit, and as a one-off, I do like what's his name on the other side of the board. I like Upton as a one-off from the Angels.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I guess if you do get the at-bats against Heaney, that definitely grades out a little better. Although we've seen him just in and out of the lineup a lot lately.
Yeah.
Those back issues.
Yeah.
I love the Yankees tonight. I am not all that worried about a stadium downgrade for a team that has power where they hit the ball 500 feet instead of, it's not like they need the extra short porch or anything. It's a bonus, sure. But like, I don't mind, especially Stanton and Gallo at their prices. They really stand out to me today, with a little nod over there to Rizzo. So I like the Yankees. If I'm going to try to fade the Blue Jays, Sheets, me, I play more of the Blue Jays than I play of any team, it's painful, but the day when they're going to be the crazy chalk after seeing the struggles they've gone through, partially because I've rostered them every game and I had to look into their numbers to pretty mind-blowing stuff, how bad they've been. But again, nothing lasts forever. They will break out of it. I think the Yankees are right there, though. I think that especially if you want to build like a 3-4 man, I think the Yankees every time they play these days, I expect them to hit 3 or 4 home runs. And I think that this is a game where I expect them to hit at least 3 or 4 home runs. I really like them. And even LeMahieu's really cheap now. The weather in LA is it's not like New York hitting weather, but it's better this time of year. And if you're gonna start stacking these, these West Coast games, this is the time of year to do it. So I'm a big fan of the Yankees tonight, Gallo and Stanton being my favorite. And I hope some people misclick and don't read the numbers and realize what Kluber's doing and they actually play him. The weirdest thing is, though, like, what if it ends up like, I don't know, man. It's just these Angels are so bad. I'm sure they won't stretch out Kluber coming back from an injury, but it's just I hope some people see that 7,400 and jump at it. I guess we've got an interesting one in the next one to talk about. Do you want to start it off?
Yeah. I think San Diego rates, as I mentioned before, is the top stack on the board. And it's the return of no-hit Gilbert to the scene of the crime, right?
The crime against the team he committed it against.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Right. Against to the victim of the crime too. Right. So I do think that San Diego rates for me as the top stack. And I also do have a little bit of interest in Arizona. I've never been a big fan of Paddock. And if people are going to play him at 5,600, I actually kind of want them to announce that he's fully stretched out and he's ready to roll, because I look, Arizona, it's not exactly, Luis Gonzalez is not exactly coming off the bench to hit for Arizona anymore, but
he's not hitting 53 home runs off the bench for them.
Yeah, not really, but I'll take a shot. If somehow people play Paddock, which I don't think they will, but Arizona, I have them rated as a good value stack. And as a matter of fact, I mean, that might be a way to go if I do something with, like, paying up for the 2 pitchers or something like that. Maybe I'll play Arizona's in those builds. So I do think that there's hitting on both sides of the board here.
So my only issue, again, I just always mention the same thing about Arizona. I would make it always a mini stack instead of a full stack this against San Diego, because San Diego and Tampa Bay, and look, occasionally I'm going to be wrong, and the teams are going to go off and against them or whatever. But these bullpens are the best bullpens in baseball, and even if they get to Paddock, are they going to be able to put up let's say they get 4 runs through 3 innings from him? Are they going to be able to put up more than another run the rest of the game? And how do they get those runs? They have enough power to get there? So I just can't quite get to the full thing. And maybe Pavin Smith, Walker, Peralta, and Van Meter all stand out from a price per dollar standpoint, a point per dollar standpoint. But I don't think that I can get quite there for a full-on stack and using all of them. I just think there's better options. I agree to some extent that San Diego is one of the top stacks on the slate. Right. I'm a little been a little bit underwhelmed by them lately, I would say. This is Arizona, though. You got Gilbert, who I actually don't think is. I mean, look, I think it's a fluke that he threw the no-hitter for sure, but I don't think he's terrible, and I think he'll figure some things out. He seems to, he has some stuff. He's kept the ball on the ground. He's only given up 1 home run so far in his little major league career. So before we just go ahead and just crazily stack him, I'm not as into it. At the same time, Arizona fits the trend of what I was saying about the Cubs about my wins last week, trying to target these teams that have nothing to play for. And even another one like the Twins the other night, even though, they'll bring in a position player in a 7-run game to pitch like Astudillo. You want to try and find that extra little oomph you can. But the problem is San Diego, that at their prices are going to be very popular. The only one you really have to pay up for that's above their normal price is Tatis. Maybe you could say that about Pham, but everyone else is way too cheap. So I do like San Diego. I just don't have them quite as high. Factoring in that I think they're going to probably be incredibly high owned, but if they aren't, I would say just go roll with them. I'm just basing a lot on ownership here. All right. Now we get into an interesting situation, right? Like, what are your thoughts about Burns and this whole game?
I just have him worse. I don't know. I just have him worse. I have him worse than Ray. I have him worse than Wheeler, and for all the reasons you'd think. I mean, he's pitching against a better team, and he just projects a little bit worse. He'd probably be lower owned as a result, but I'm not seeing it that way. I mean, I'm seeing him just as highly owned as the other two. And for me, I'd rather play the other two. That's nothing really wrong with Burns, I guess. But he's just not as good for me. I also am getting to a tiny bit of Milwaukee in the hitting aspect, in the hitting portion. Again, not as high as like the top teams, but maybe as a secondary team. And that's kind of where I stand.
Yeah, I don't love obviously playing games in San Francisco, but we have a smaller slate today, so maybe a couple bats for Milwaukee. Yelich, Urias, Wong. I made a misstatement the other day about Urias not having much power. Urias actually does have power. So those 3 guys, and then Tellez, at 2,600 is a good value. There's a lot of value from Milwaukee. It makes sense. I just don't know. I want to go with a full stack against just a really good baseball team. San Francisco's consistently really, really impressive, just playing the game the right way, and having a sneaky deep lineup has me a little bit off of Burns. At the same time, would it surprise me if Burns struck out 14 guys tonight? It never would. He's got incredible stuff. He's on top of being incredible. He doesn't walk anybody. I think he had his first, what did he have? It was like his first 75 strikeouts this year before he walked somebody, something crazy number like that. He's had gotten a little walk happy a little bit more lately, partly because people were starting to figure him out, hit the ball a lot harder. But I mean, the guy doesn't give up home runs. He doesn't walk that many people, and he strikes out everybody. He's a hard guy to not at least have some interest in if you're multi-entering. So he'll make a lineup or two of mine as a pivot off of Ray. I'll probably use a little bit of Baltimore in that stack, and I'll probably use him with Wheeler. But I just think that he's a little bit worse, like you said, than the other guys are.
So we get on to the next game. I really have all three of these teams pretty close. Honestly, between Padres, Dodgers, and Toronto, as far as the hitting goes. So, I'd like if you either break the tie with your Dodgers insight, or to give me a little insight to make me like him a little bit more, a little bit less. Because right now I'm really just up in the air between all three of them. I do have them ranked a little. I don't want to say a little worse on FanDuel. That's not even true. So that's kind of where I'm at. I didn't get to Urias, and certainly I didn't get to Smiley. Where are you at with the Dodgers today?
I'm very high on the Dodgers. I don't love, look, it's not like there's a bunch of things that I don't like that aren't going to be chalky. So I think the Dodgers, as we all know, always end up less owned when they're playing at home because the lineups come out after lock most of the time or near lock. Historically, Smiley has actually been good against them outside of Mookie Betts. And he fits that mold of the Blake Snell type that can kind of drive this team a little bit nutty. And the bats haven't been on fire the last, few games, although overall, the Dodgers have been the hottest team in baseball since the trade. I'm interested in the Dodgers here. I don't mind using the lefties, especially because Smiley can, give up some power to lefties as well.
Yeah.
AJ Pollock, I think, is one of the best plays on the slate. I love that these prices came down on everybody, and I think that we should take advantage of it. So I actually have the Dodgers. I think Dodgers and Yankees I'm rating a little bit higher, factoring in ownership, than the Blue Jays and Padres. So that's sort of the way that I'm sort of approaching this from the get-go. And look, you can play everybody 1 through 8. I know how bad Bellinger has been this year. It's pretty amazing. I never thought there'd be a day where we'd see Bellinger at 3,200 batting eighth for the Dodgers if he even makes the lineup. But that's where we are. The guy who I tend to try to avoid, although he did it at a home running against the lefty the other night, Will Smith is significantly better against righties than he is against lefties. Again, he's still totally playable, but just throwing that out there. Turner, Seager, Muncy at 4,800. Come on. And then we have to see how the lineup shakes out. We're not going to really see it. So I'll try and do my digging and figure out what I can, but I'm not going to probably know everything. I would just say Turner, Seager, Muncy, and Turner, both Turners, would be my favorites. Pollock would be my favorite along with those 4. And then you get Taylor, Bellinger, Smith for me. But I really do like the Dodgers tonight. And love Urias as a real life pitcher. Think he's awesome. Probably deserves some Cy Young consideration, even though he shouldn't get it this year. But I can't play him with these other guys in the same price range in what's not a great matchup. I also don't have any interest in the Atlanta Bats.
Is Muncy in the running for MVP?
Yeah, I don't know where it stands right now, but it's going to be Tatis, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh, right, okay.
But Muncy would be probably in the top. I think Muncy and who you could argue that a couple other guys could be in the top. Just Trey Turner is definitely going to be in the top 5 for voting, but it's weird because he did a lot of the damage before he came to LA.
Right.
But just watching him every day, this guy is a guy you want to play as much as possible. The speed, and he's got power, but the speed out there is just, you just feel like he's a walking stolen base. He's gonna go. And I'm just gonna double check Smiley's current stolen base numbers, because that should factor in how you want to play with him. He used to be really bad. Looks like he's gotten a little bit better this year, still giving up some, but yeah, I can get behind I love Trey Turner. And then again, you don't need to fully stack the Dodgers. You can find a couple 1-2 offs there, but I do like them as a stack as well. All right, Houston, Seattle, you go.
Yeah, I have Garcia is certainly a possible. I'm going to have him as, not a top option, but if I was playing a bunch of lineups, I'd get to him. He's a good pitcher, and Seattle still strikes out. And the thing is, you got to get you got to get 2 of these guys to not do well, right? Between Ray, Wheeler, and Burns, or at least one of them. It's kind of hard. But I do think that Garcia, I have him rated 6th, maybe something like that. Overall, considering everything else. So I think he's in play. I did not get to Flexen, and I actually was expecting to get to some of the Houston hitting, but I think Flexen is good enough, I guess, to keep me off of Houston, I think.
So the thing with Garcia is I really think he's good. Like, I think he's got really good stuff. I like to try and attack some Seattle, even though the truth is, as an overall baseball team, shout out to Seattle. Like, they've done a great job this year of being a really competitive team, while sort of at times being like the laughing stock of the major leagues because they got no hit twice in a week. You know what I mean? Because they got no hit 3 times the first half of the season or whatever it was. They're not as bad, I think, as maybe everyone thinks, but you still should certainly look at, trying to attack them at times. But the problem with Garcia for me is he was awesome last time out. He was spectacular against Kansas City. I actually had him at like almost no ownership because I had to fade off Marquee in the game that got postponed, which was my plan the whole time, and I had to leave 1,000 on the table. Well, it didn't matter because he put up a great game and saved me that night from having a losing night. The problem is he has to be basically flawless in order to pitch really deep into a game. It's not like, and this is true for most Houston pitchers in general who aren't the absolute aces. You're not gonna get all the pitches out of it. They have got a great bullpen, or good bullpen, not what it used to be, but still very good. And even unless you're pitching like perfectly, like he was last time out, you're not gonna have that kind of leash that these other guys have. But as a low-owned contrarian option, sure. If he's gonna have anywhere double-digit or more ownership, I probably would just completely X him out. I think this is a funny spot because I think finally, like the Vegas is finally admitting that Chris Flexen is a decent pitcher. Or at least has been decent this year, for whatever it's worth. It's really weird. If you would have told me before, I would have guessed Houston had an over 5 run total. And certainly if this game was a week ago, they would have had an easily over 5 run total. I'm not talking about playing Flexen. I think it's interesting that no one wants to play Houston. And while Flexen, again, he has been really, really good. He got lit up last time he faced this Houston team. This is not a spot where I wouldn't want to take some shots with Houston. Maybe not as a full stack. Jordan Alvarez has suddenly become like the best hitter in baseball all of a sudden. With Bregman back in the lineup, and I don't know if I want to play Bregman at 5K, but it makes everybody else a little bit better. And it also puts guys like Kyle Tucker batting 7th, who's just an awesome play at 4K. Michael Brantley. I don't mind if you want to use Myers as a cheapo to fill out your stack. And then you've got the top guys at the top who no one's going to play, Altuve and Alvarez. You're going to get like 2% ownership on Houston on not a very big slate. And this is a powerful offense. Yeah, it's a stadium downgrade, but it's not a huge one for them. So I actually think Houston has a contrarian stack, maybe more of a mini stack for me, but I don't know, actually. I think Houston I think that they're sort of in the San Diego Blue Jays category for a very different reason. I think they have the ability to go off. And I think that they are going to be extremely low owned, like extremely low owned. And they're just too talented of an offense for that to happen. So that's my only argument there for Houston.
Yeah. So I guess to summarize, it is a pretty, I don't want to say straightforward, but I mean, like I have the slate's like in front of me. Like I know what you know what I mean. I know what's there. For me on DraftKings, I mean, right now, I mean, Ray would be my top guy. And then, I have Wheeler, Marquee, and Burns, kind of like all 3 of them kind of similar. And then after that, kind of the GPP play would be Pivetta, and then as I mentioned before, Garcia. I don't think I'm going to do the Alexi, but we can talk about that some later, I guess. As far as stacks go on DraftKings, I like San Diego, LA, and Toronto, and I'm just between all 3 of them. I might end up just taking whichever one at the very last minute is the lowest owned, I think. Maybe that's what I'll end up doing. And if you wanted to, again, Arizona, that's just definitely not that's good. I think that's going to be the low owned one. That doesn't really, it's not really going to break the slate. In other words, like you play them as a 5-man and they're 2% owned. Don't be complaining. You know what I mean? Like if they don't score enough, you know what I mean? Like
right.
they just don't have that. But as you've been saying with Arizona, like all season, doesn't mean you can't play them, but maybe not a 5-man stack,
Yeah. I think a 3-man is down makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but teams that could actually put up a number like the Yankees, maybe Milwaukee, maybe like you just said, Houston. And as far as DK one-offs, I mentioned before, DK one-offs of teams that I didn't use. That's the way I'm going to describe these. Mm-hmm. DK one-offs of teams that I'm not stacking are McCutchen, Miller from Philly, and Upton from the Angels. Mm-hmm. And just while I'm here, let me just go over FanDuel too. FanDuel, I have Ray as the top guy, and then Wheeler, Marquee second, and then whatever reason, the Phillies pop out as a much better stack on FanDuel than San Diego, Toronto, LA, and actually some Colorado on FanDuel.
Yeah, I agree with most of the things. I don't have the Philly interest, but I get it. Like it's definitely the kind of spot that I would try to attack on certain slates like this. So maybe I could still change my mind on that one. But I really like on FanDuel. I do think that I don't care about the price difference or discrepancy of any kind. I think it's Wheeler for me as number one, Ray as number two, and by the way, this is the same on DraftKings actually. Now that I look at it, I do think I will force some Burns in because I think that the upside is there. I think I will play some Marquis. I think I will play some Pavetta. And that's pretty much going to be my pitching pool. Maybe I'll mix in a Paddock, Patino, Garcia if I feel like I'm going to play a too chalky stack. In terms of stacks, I have the Dodgers, Yankees higher than everybody else, factoring in what I think the ownership will be. I have Houston as I'm starting to talk myself more and more into this Houston thing. If we can get no ownership on the Houston as we've consistently gotten lately, I definitely think there's an argument for it. The Blue Jays obviously stand out. So my plan is to probably have a Blue Jay or two in probably all my lineups, but maybe not stack the Blue Jays. Just because I think that's going to be the common thing that people do today. And, they have a significantly higher run total. And then San Diego, I like very much, but I expect them to be high owned. So I'm probably going to be a little bit lower on them for full stacks than the field and maybe higher on the one-offs that people aren't going to play as much of, the guys at the bottom of the order, things like that.
Okay.
All right, guys. Well, hey, let's have another great week. Hopefully we can get somebody else. Everybody else can take it down as long as they save me the million tomorrow and me and Sheets go 1-2 in the million tomorrow. And I think anything else I'll take.
That's good to me.
All right. Well, good luck to everybody out there. For Sheets and everyone at TrueDFS, I'm Bobby saying we'll hopefully see you at top leaderboards.